Hello, welcome back. Remember, in the first episode of the Surface Explorer Record series, we looked at how we plan to build an application. In this case, for me, I'm building a task management application called TaskFlow using a three-part methodology that I call Surface, Explore, and Record. And we're currently in the idea phase. In the idea phase, we're telling the AI what our project, what our application is all about. And currently, in part of the idea phase, we're working on the business requirements. The business requirements answers the question, why? Why are we building this application? And in episode 1, we started working on some decision records that will later go into building our business requirements document, or BRD, in this episode. So these are some of the questions that we're going to answer during the idea phase. Questions like, who is this for? And what's the minimum viable version? In other words, why are we doing this? And what is it going to mean for our business later? Now, this is very important, especially if you're not just building an application, but you're building a business. You'll use this information later when you're looking for investors or partners or just bringing in employees. These documents will help you to explain what you're building. Not just that, but we'll use these business requirements documents later to build the technical documents. So let's turn back to Claude Code and let's continue. Now we're back in Claude Code, and on the left you can see a list of all of the decisions that I made between episode 1 and episode 2, what we're doing now. And more importantly, you see this index file. So I'm going to pull this up quickly so that you can see exactly what is included. Now notice, in my case, I came up with 29 business-related decisions that we needed to make. And these were all very easy to go through, because if there was anything that I didn't understand, I could just stop and ask Claude, explain this more to me before I actually made the decision. Now let's close this back and get in. Now our goal here is to turn these decisions into an actual business requirements document, a BRD. And the decisions may not be enough for what we need to create the BRD. So what I'm going to tell Claude to do, I'm going to tell Claude to review the business decisions, and notice I give it the location of where those decisions are, and tell it that I plan to create a business requirements document. And I'm asking it, what other information do we need to put together in order to create this business requirements document? So let's kick Claude off, and it's going to go through, look at the decisions one by one, and it's going to decide, is there any other information that it thinks that we need to gather before we build the business requirements document. Now I'm going to pause here and I'll come back when Claude is finished. Okay, so Claude is finished going through my business decisions, and it's giving me a list of some additional information that we should include in a business requirements document. Now, there are different ways to handle this. We could go through and create more business decision records just like we did in the last episode, but I'm going to show you another way to go through this if you decide to do it this way instead. So if you look through what's not covered by our business decisions, you'll see several different items, several different sections that should be included in a business requirements document that's not in our decisions. Now, for my particular case, I'm building this app just for demonstration purposes, so I don't need all of these. But what I'm going to do is I am saying that, you know what, I really like this idea of user journeys, user stories, so I'm going to tell Claude to create that. So I've got my prompt here, and I'm just saying this app is only for demonstration purposes, and based on that, create some general user journeys and use cases and put them in a markdown document in this folder. Now, remember, don't worry about copying down this prompt word for word. You'll be able to find the prompts in the GitHub, and you'll find a link to it in the description. But don't worry about using it word for word. Put it in your own words. Make it work for you. So again, I'm going to kick Claude off, and it's going to create this user journey and use cases document for me. And then I will take a break, and I'll come back when it's finished, and we'll see what Claude has made. Okay, so Claude has finished its work, and you see that it created a new document called User Journeys, and it put that in the business folder like I asked it to, and it created 6 user journeys and 13 use cases. Now, we don't want to just take Claude's word for it to make sure that, and just assume that it has everything like we want it. That's the whole purpose of this methodology, is that we're the ones making the decisions and not Claude. So the first thing that I want to do is open that user journeys file and read through it. Now, if you use VS Code and you're not used to Markdown, you can always go to preview mode. And in preview mode, it's a little more user-friendly and readable version of the file. So in this case, you would read through and say, does this make sense? Is the user journeys and the use cases make sense for the app that you're going to create? If they do, then you can leave it like it is. If not, you can either work with Claude to automatically adjust it for you, or you can change it and change it yourself and do it manually. In this case, since again, this is just for demonstration, I'm going to leave it like it is. And the next part of this is I'm going to tell Claude, once I've gone through all the documents, all the information that I want to add, again, doing it this new way, creating it in a sub-document one at a time. Now I'm going to say, okay, I've got everything that I want, and I'm going to tell Claude, hey, since this is for demonstration purposes only, I'm not going to create the other documents. Instead, just create the business requirements document based on the decision records and the user journey document, and then just use general information. Now, this is where you would want to go through and create each of those other documents that are important to your business use case, to your business requirements, to make sure that Claude has the correct information for your application. Remember, you're trying to guide Claude into what you want to make, not just letting Claude make the decisions. In my case, this is for demonstration, so I showed you how to do one document with the user journeys, and now we'll get Claude to make the business requirements document from that information and just general information. Again, I'm going to pause and I'll come back when the BRD is complete. Okay, so Claude has finished creating our BRD, our business requirements document, and take a look at what Claude created: an executive summary, purpose and scope, target users and market, 10 different sections here in our business requirements document. Now, it used the decision records that we made last episode, and it used the user journey document that I created in this episode, but the other parts came from just Claude's general information. As you can see, Claude will now plan to build this application based on this information. This is information that Claude created. In your application, you don't want to just let Claude do it its way. You want to go through and make sure that you're making those decisions. So in the previous part where I just skipped all the other documents, you don't want to do that. If it's a document that's important to you, if it's a decision that's important to you, you want to make sure that you include that part in your business decisions so that you can tell Claude what you want to do. For demonstration, I'm good with this, so we can continue. First, let's take a look at what our BRD looks like. So here is our business requirements document. Notice there's the executive summary, just like Claude said. Tell you what, I'll go ahead and open it in preview so it's a little bit easier to see. And I can make this bigger. So here's our executive summary. Here's our purpose and scope. Here is our target users and market. So it has everything that Claude said that it was going to build. Now, this document, as you can tell, contains a lot of information that will be very valuable for people who are interested in your business and knowing what you're doing. Why are you building this application? What is its purpose? This doesn't get into how you're going to build it. It doesn't get into what you're building. It's just why. Why are you building it? Now, there's one more thing that's very important. And as I've talked to Vibe coders, I found that many times they leave this out. There's something that's called an elevator pitch. And an elevator pitch is just a quick 30-second explanation of what you're building, of your application, of your product. So I'm going to tell Claude now to take this information from the business requirements document and create a little bit different kind of document. It's going to be more of a narrative document. As you see, it's a business overview document I'm asking for with an elevator pitch at the beginning. The elevator pitch is very important, so you want to include that. And then it gives an overview of the task flow, and I want it to be non-technical. And again, I tell it I want it to be marked down and where to put it. And I'm just going to add here, make this a narrative document. So in this document, it's not so much going to be the details like bullet points and things like that. It's going to be more story form. And this will be very good later when you're building, say, marketing material or your web information, about your application, because now you're going to have more in story form, and you can use this as you're trying to tell people about your application. So let's kick Claude off again, and I'll come back when it's done. Okay, so Claude is finished and it's created the business overview document just like I requested. Let's take a look at it. And you should see right away how this document is different than the business requirements document. This document is going to read more like a story. And notice it begins with the elevator pitch. This elevator pitch is very, very important. You want to make sure that you fine tune it. So if you read through this and it doesn't read exactly like you want to either manually change it or work with Claude to change it. This is what you're going to tell people when they say, what are you building? They don't care about where it's being hosted. They don't care about what the database is. They don't care about all these things that you might care about. They care about this information, what's in the elevator pitch, the why. Why are you doing this? And this is what the elevator pitch is for. And then we have the other information here that helps you explain your application in terms that the general public or business people or even investors would understand. So let's get back to Claude again. And we finished our business requirements documents and our business overview documents for this episode. And this was our goal of episode 2. The next step in this, still part of the idea phase, but the next step is building product documents, product requirement documents, and product decisions. We're going to talk about that in episode 3. So I hope you stick around, come back later, and we'll find out how to continue using Claude to surface some decisions, to explore our options, and then to record those decisions. And then later as we go through, I'll show you how to use those decisions to build an application the way you want it built. Grab some coffee, go into your the GitHub that I'll put in the description, then use these same steps for your application and tell me how it comes out.